Do you max out about 350, 365 golf distance, maybe push 400? If so, check out this in the bag. I'm super excited. 2025 is the year. I'm doing my first tournament in about 10 days. Super excited. I got an awesome PDGA number 300, 400. Super excited. I just went to the field and tested these out with my son. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to bring the camera. He's napping now, so I just kind of wanted to debrief myself, and I figured I might as well record. You can follow along, see if there's any molds that you might be interested in, maybe something you've never heard of. So I've also got about a dozen or so that didn't make the bag, but I've got 21 in the bag, plus my 2 throwing putters and my 2 putting putters. So we'll go ahead and knock those out so I can make room to go through the bag. For my putting putters, I love the Yaikun Gui in Tiger Plastic. These two are brand new, never thrown. Unfortunately, 171 grams. I like the 172, slightly heavier, but they had a sale on these on Infinite Disc, and the plastic's great, nice and gummy. It's basically a cross between a Proxy and an Envy, in my opinion. It's got stability, it beats up, but it goes dead straight. Kind of like a beat in Envy, or yeah, like my throwing putter, which is my other throwing putter, which is the Eclipse Proxy, which flies almost exactly the same, just I got a touch more stability, and I figure it's a little slicker and it got a little bit more weight on the rim. I think it might just be a nice thrower, so I'm going to try that, especially if I end up with my beat-in putter having a grip lock or anything like that. It's just a little slicker. I think it'll come out just a touch cleaner. But I threw them both. They flew almost identical. This one just kind of had a little touch of understability to it, whereas the Eclipse Proxy was just dead straight. Those are straight. So that's throwing putters and putting putters. My approach disc, I've got 3 main approaches. I just did a video where I tested about 20 approach discs. However, I kind of went back to what I previously had bagged, just because I've got more reps with them and more familiar. I like some of the other ones that I'll be trying out, but under short notice, 10 days until the tournament, not a lot of time to practice, I'm just going back to the trusty approach disc I've been using. K3 Berg, a lot of weight in the rim, great for forehand. Don't throw out a ton on backhand, usually forehand. I prefer a forehand approach if I'm able to. So this thing does awesome on the forehand, just goes dead straight and then drops straight to the ground. Always finds a way to stay near the basket. Even if I throw a bad throw, it won't go too far from the basket and leave me a putt. Jawbreaker zone for nice straights. Actually got a little bit of turn to it, but then a nice fade. So this is a really nice straight. Basically when I need more distance than the Berg, I'm going to go with the Jawbreaker zone, and I like the feel. It feels very similar to the K3 plastic that kind of sticks to the ground and stays close. Now if I need something more overstable, I've got a pretty new Z zone, just got more stability. Also ground action if I need a little skip. So those are my approaches. For mid-ranges, only 2 mid-ranges. The uplink, this one's brand new. I just threw it twice in the field. But I had one I got my first ace with, 185-foot woods hole. Just a nice little nose down, little flick. This thing very understable, very workable. But the weight in the rim, I think MVP does a great job with the mid-ranges, the kind of the slower speed disc. So this is an awesome understable. A little bit less stable than a Meteor, I would say, or just a great understable, but not too understable where it'll burn over, but understable enough it'll have a lot of turn and then want to kind of finish straight. So awesome disc. I would probably use this a lot in my tournament. Went back to the Z Buzzz. I was liking this M4 and the 400G because it's nice and grippy. It just feels great. But not being so used to it, I was grip locking it or opening my hand out of fear of grip lock. The Z Buzzz that's slicker, since it's a little deeper than like a driver, I feel like this is going to be a more consistent release to my drivers, and I've got a lot of experience with it. So just a Z Buzzz, a little bit worn, but it's still got some stability to it. So sideline to M4, but I really like the feel of it, and I'm going to experiment more. Let's see, next. The only 6-speed that I have, I guess technically a mid-range, but it feels more like a driver, the Kaxe from Kaxe in the K1 plastic, cool stamp. I've had this one for a while. I noticed it's actually got a little turn now. It used to be dead straight with a nice 0.2 or 0.3 fade even, but now I'm getting on the forehand. I'm getting a little turn, so it's definitely workable, but really good dependable fade. So essentially, it's just like my zone. Probably, yeah, it's just like a longer zone, kind of, is the way I would describe this. So got a little bit of turn, great for forehands, very torque resistant, but then has a nice dependable fade. So yeah, if I need a little more distance on an approach, or maybe hook around a tree or something, that's a great kind of approach type disc. Definitely recommend the Kaxe. They also make a Kaxe Z. If you're a little bit slower arm speed, it'll do pretty much the same thing, but it's kind of like a 0.2. It's like a T-Bird, but a 6-speed, so it feels comfortable in your hand. Good for forehands because it's pretty torque resistant. It'll turn, it'll kind of flip up, but it'll go dead straight and then have a nice 0.2 fade. I used to really love the Kaxe Z, but now I just stick with the Kaxe since I'm throwing a little harder. I've got 1, 2, 3 7-speeds. I was trying a lot of these because this is what I really needed to work out most, I think, for the course I'm going to be playing. Fairway drivers, 7-speeds. And before I had the Kaxe Z's and the 6-speed, so this is kind of a newer slot for me. I like to go from 6 to 9-speed, but now I'll be using the 7-speeds more. Than I'm throwing a little bit harder. I should say, yeah, I was maxing out in the field today consistently between 350, 365. However, when I came back and did the tech disc, I was throwing like 53 to 57 with the my kind of golf form where I'm really trying to hit the lines, be consistent, slight hyzer. My fastest arm speed is actually when I kind of crank over, throw flat or a little bit of an ante, and I can get that up to, I got up to 64, but usually around 60, 61, maybe 62, 63 if it's a good day. So I can throw a little harder, I can go 400, but I think in the tournament, really focusing on accuracy, I'm going to be throwing around 57 miles an hour for reference, about 350, 365 max. So yeah, hopefully that'll help give you a gauge of how these discs might fly for you. I've had this for a while, but this thing is tough. The FD and the C-line plastic doesn't really wear, very durable, pretty much like brand new, just a few scuffs, no dents or dings. So this one's more overstable. I just got this S-line with the awesome stamp on Whatnot. If you haven't tried Whatnot, very fun for getting discs and very addictive, and I spent way too much money. Profiles, similar. I mean, the feel, everything, plastic feels similar, but the S-line, these are a nice compliment because the C-line FD from Discmania has, if you forehand it, it will flip up, but it's got a lot of stability. The S-line, it'll flip up, but it'll push kind of straight. And on the backhand, you can actually kind of crank over. You can throw it flat, slight ante, and the FD and the C-line will fight out of it. It's got quite a bit of stability, so real dependable, hyzer, 7-speed. But the S-line, I think I'll use a lot in the woods for nice straight shots. Kind of like a longer Buzzz, I would say. Really liking this. Only thrown it 3 or 4 times, but really nice straight flight. For my understable 7-speed, it's the Cicada. This one I haven't had for very long, but after just a few throws, it kind of beat in this Big Z plastic. Or maybe it was around the same time I was increasing my arm speed. It it'll kind of turn and it won't burn, but it'll hold an angle. So this would be like a more understable, maybe work a 7-speed. It probably won't throw it as much, but it can also be straight if you put it on the right amount of hyzer. I think I'm just going to kind of lean on the FDs more. For honorable mentions there, while I'm thinking about it, I really liked, oops. Oh, I have another one on the shelf. I really like the Legacy Disc Patriot. This, I'm not too familiar with their plastic. This is the Icon plastic, I guess. 7.5 -2.1. The other one flies just like it, but it's a little slicker. This is a little gummier and grippier, but it's still a touch slick for my liking. I kind of like the grippier. This flies very similar to my straight FD. I would rate it as like a -1.1 because it's not a -2.1. This thing goes far. It goes straight. This is an awesome mold, and I've got it in another plastic here. This one, and I like them both. This one maybe is a little flatter. Well, it says Icon Edition too. I'm not familiar with their plastics, unfortunately, but made in the USA. These are both awesome. I like them both. I've been using these. These go dead straight 7-speed. Really nice disc, and they go far. They actually were going farther than my FDs. So you might want to check out the Patriot from Legacy Disc. Anyway, yeah, I just got to get used to the feel, and I think the feel of the C line, the overstable, and the straight, I just kind of like the feel. So that's the only reason they won out. All right, next, back to the bag. One of my very favorite discs, the Kaxe Falk. 9.6 -2.1 are the flight numbers, but this thing is like super neutral, dead straight, 9-speed. I would call it a -1.1, in my opinion. Just, this thing goes far, it goes straight, it feels great in the hand, K1 plastic. I love the color. Yeah, really good. If you've never tried the Falk, try the Falk. Unless you've got a really big arm speed, you're throwing over 400, it might be too understable for you, but anything under 350 foot max, try the Falk. 300, when I was throwing 300 max, I still love this thing. It went really nice, really far, and really straight. I've had it in a few different plastics. I love the Falk, F-A-L-K. Now, I've got the Royal Honor because I feel like the Royal line is very similar to the K1 line. I think they kind of bought Kaxe, in my opinion, to buy their K1 plastic, their K-line plastic. But anyway, same color. This one's got some swirls, but it's a more overstable. It's 9.502.5, and I think that rating is pretty good. This is more of like a kind of like a Thunderbird slot. I just like the feel to my Falk. Nice overstable 9-speed. Alright, I've got a Sexton Firebird. I'm not sure what year this is. I don't know a lot. I've got his latest one. I've only got those 2 Firebirds, I think. Maybe a third, but I recently picked them up. I really like it. I threw a Felon for a long time, but it's got... I love the Felon. It's really beat in. I don't know. I'm just kind of trying this out because it feels great in this gummier plastic, and just a nice, it's a little bit more overstable than my Felon. My Felon's beat in to have a bit of turn, but then still a lot of hook, which I like. I can get more distance. But yeah, I'm trying out the Sexton Firebird for a bit. Pretty new to the bag. This one's actually brand new. I only threw it a few times. I had a Fission Wave, and actually I don't know where it is. I might have lost it. I did a custom die on it, and I haven't seen it in a while. But it was getting kind of too understable anyway. However, this is a Neutron Wave, and I kind of like the feel of the Neutron, and it matches this Neutron Trail. So I think these are a nice complement. The trail is a great disc. People are loving, and yeah, this thing bombs. Just little slight hyzer, flips up to flat, goes super far, dead straight. It's like a double distance Buzzz. Like the Buzzz, and then my FD, and this really nice straight disc. I'm probably gonna lean on those a lot because it's a very wooded for anything tight. Just love that pop up dead straight. The Wave, however, is more of an S. It's got some turn and it's got some fade, but I was getting some bombs out of it. I think it's a little too understable for a forehand, so I'll just probably use this for if I need a lot of distance but somewhat straight. Kind of a tighter S than my distance drivers. I may not actually use it a lot. I just like the weight in the rim. Probably nice for some pushing hyzers is probably what I would use this for. Now this is where I really had to spend a lot of work. I've got rows of distance drivers. A lot I haven't even been able to try out yet. But let's talk through these. If you're looking for a super bomber, my most understable tailwind bomber, this DD, first run DD, even the stock S-line DDs, very similar. I think this one's a touch more understable, but very similar. And I also have a Metal Flake DD, which has got a little bit more stability, but the flight numbers I think are 11.5 or 11.6, -3.2. So this is a nice lot of turn, dependable fade, like it won't burn, but you can get some big S's. This thing is like cheat distance. So any tailwinds, I'll probably go to this guy as my most understable. More neutral is the Wild Honey. I think it's very similar to the Wave, same flight numbers, 12.5, -2.2. This one I think is just an amazing disc. It bombs. It's got a little bit more stability for forehand, so I could use it for forehand, but mostly this is just like, I got a little bit of turn, but quite a bit of stability. It's very forgiving. So if I've got a wide open fairway and I want to get some distance, but I don't need maximum distance, I'm probably going to go to this one. It's just, this thing crushes, but it's got a nice finish to it. So dependable, crush. Also for forehand, you can get some distance on a forehand too. So love the Wild Honey and from Clash Disc and their steady plastic. Now for backhand, my overstable. This is a Beat-In Destroyer. Shout out to, I don't see the name, only the number. Somebody got a ace with it, but I got it at Play It Again Sports. It's a pretty sweet destroyer. I thought it was a Wraith. It said Wraith on it, but then the mold says Destroyer. And this thing gets some good distance, but it's very overstable at the end. So this is one I can throw. I can kind of flex over if I really am going for like max distance, but then dependable fade. Like a lot of distance, but definitely needs to come back. Now this is brand new. I only threw it once or twice. A ESP Swirl Nuke, Brody Smith, Dark Horse. Love Brody and the content he makes, and it's just a nice nuke. It feels good, looks good, cool stamp. This I think will be my overstable, like super overstable, super beef. There was a Boss that I was trying out that's brand new, an Air Boss, but it was max weight Air Boss, and it was just too beefy. I think this one with the wider rim, I liked how this one, even if I flex it over, it like went super straight and super far fast, but then would be a good wind fighter. So I think if I need something dependable, but also kind of push really straight and far first, I like the Nuke. So that's my kind of wind fighter. These are more, well, if I need not a tailwind bomber, but like max distance, this is a brand new Shryke. I've only thrown in the field a few times. 173.5 Ricky Wysocki Innova Shryke. This thing is pretty sweet. I got some great S's max distance. So if the wind's calm and I just want to go for max distance, I used to bag a Star Shryke for a while. It's gotten to be too unstable, but I'm familiar with the Shryke. It's also kind of nice on a forehand, so this might be my max kind of flip up S forehand too. But these two are more my two forehand discs that I'll be using for forehand. The Zeus, I also might backhand the Zeus if I want like just your typical like flight of a pro, the way a pro would throw a destroyer where you get some turn but then dependable fade. This one does that for me. You know, at 350 feet of power, it's got some nice turn but definitely dependable fade. But it's also great on a forehand where I can put it on some hyzer and it'll flip up and get a nice S flight, but definitely kind of hook and finish more. Whereas the Pro Boss, which is beat in a bit, I just got, this thing just felt great on a forehand. It's nice and grippy, just tucks into my, just felt awesome. And then I threw it like 30-40 feet further than all the rest. So this is going to be my max distance forehand, flat, and it'll get a full S come back. So those are my drivers. That's my bag. I'll go through some more here that I was testing out. If you were curious, that didn't make it. A Pro Destroyer. This was a nice flight, but it did like what my Zeus did, and I've had the Zeus for a long time, just more familiar. So, and it actually was a little bit less stable, I think, than my Zeus because of the Pro plastic. But you can't go wrong with destroyers. I used to bag a Thrasher for a long time when I was throwing 300, you know, 315 max distance, and I would get some nice S's, but this was too understable today. I didn't realize I was throwing in a slight headwind, so this one kind of crashed and burned, whereas I think the DD will be very similar, but it just wants to kind of push further and get more distance. So if I'm going to go with the understable bomber, I'm going to go with the DD over the Thrasher, but this is a great mold. I recommend Thrashers. Let's see, the Strive. I really like the Strive on forehand and backhand. This one I didn't have to put on hyzer to pop up. I could throw this one kind of more flat, and even in the headwind it did turn, but it really has some stability and comes back. So I like it. I just fear with the wider rim that it might be less forgiving than some of the other drivers, and yeah, if I don't just get the angle as right, I don't think it'll be as forgiving. So I have to work on it more, but this was great forehand and backhand. It probably will eventually make the bag. It's just kind of too new to me. The Devil Hawk for approaches. Honestly, this has got the same stability as my Z-Zone, but it's gummier and slower speed. So I like the idea of bagging this. I love throwing it, but I think I can just power down on my Z-Zone and save room in the bag. I've just got more familiarity with the Z-Zone, so I'm just going to stick with it. But Devil Hawk from Gateway feels great. Great approach disc. This Moonshine Trespass is a little used. I was hoping in the Moonshine it would be a little bit more stable than my other Trespasses. Which I had been bagging the Supreme Trespass because I love the feel of the Supreme Trespass plastic. So I like K1, nice and grippy. But this one is getting a little too understable. It flies like my Zeus, but a little bit less stable, kind of like my Thrasher used to. So, and then same thing with this Moonshine Trespass. They were just a little too understable for my liking. So the Trespass is a great mold, but now, on the other hand, this is a brand new Saki Bomb Trespass, and it was too beefy. So, they may come back in the bag, especially the complement of the Trespasses. Here's the airbox I was briefly mentioning. This thing is beefy, 175. This would be an awesome wind fighter, but we don't have a ton of wind here in Georgia, usually. So I think if I do, I'll just lean on my destroyer, and that'll be good enough. I had this F5, but it's a little less stable than the Cicada. So this would be nice if I powered down, but I'm just not as familiar. I like the feel. Prodigy F5. We've got some more F5s in the mail in a more premium plastic. So if that was a premium one, I would probably work with it more. I really like the Corvette. This is a brand new Glow Corvette, 14.6 -22. But similar to the Rive, the really wide rim, I feel like it's maybe less forgiving. You really got to get the angle right. Too much nose up, and it's not going to do what you want. But this thing did great, forehand and backhand. A little bit less stable than I thought. It's really workable, kind of like a Shryke, but a little bit faster Shryke. Corvette. I'm definitely going to work on it more. The Katana, this is a used Katana. Ghost stamp, cool die, Longhorns die, just got it. I think it's -3.3 are the numbers, maybe -2.2. Oh, -2.3. So I wasn't throwing it hard enough. If I ripped over on this better, like when I got home and was throwing more like 61, this might be a really nice bomber, but it was still pretty beefy. I've just got to spend more time, so it's not quite making the bag yet. And then this is my Star Daedalus, which I used to forehand. Started on a ton of hyzer on a forehand, and then get it to do the full S, but I'm not as practiced with it, and I feel like just for the tournament, I'd rather use discs that are a little bit more consistent with the Zeus and the Boss. A little bit less hyzer, so I don't really gotta bend over and get the angle as right. But this one's good, and this one bombed too on the backhand for like let it turn over and keep going. I got some huge distance, but it's just one of my oldest discs and getting a little bit too understable, I think. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed kind of learning about what I'm going to be bagging. I'm going to go ahead and put my name and number on these, and yeah, super excited for the tournament 2025. Don't know what to expect, but I'm practice putting, super excited, and I'm hoping these discs will work out. If you're curious, by the time you see this, I'm just new on this YouTube channel, so you probably could look up my first tournament. It's at Alexander Park JRDG disc golf, I think. It's just a 1-round flex start, but you can see how I did and how these discs worked out for me. I'm hoping pretty well. But yeah, thanks for watching. I appreciate you. Hope you have a great day, and like and subscribe if you like this. Appreciate it.